You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, Doge, and more. Cryptocurrencies and digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity, provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments throughout the world's leading crypto derivatives markets. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of crypto derivatives. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again for the Crypto Rundown, the program here on the network where we go a little bit beyond our traditional stomping grounds of options and indeed futures, go a little bit farther afield, see what's popping off in those crypto derivatives markets. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which so many of you are mainlining these days. Remember, if you want to get access to all the fun stuff going on throughout the week, including, of course, live streams of everything, pro Q&As, options oddities, and indeed some fun giveaways. We just gave away the January Pro Trading Crate. Want to get your hands on the February one? Only one place to go. theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to learn more. As we learn who's joining us on the old program today, it is time to roll out the Crypto Hot Seat.
Forget about cold storage. It's time to turn up the heat on thought leaders from the world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time to take their place on the Crypto Hot Seat.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Crypto Hot Seat, the portion of the program where we are joined by guests from throughout the world of crypto derivatives and indeed beyond. And I'm pleased to be joined on the program by my old friend / nemesis in the world of options, even though he's wearing a new hat these days, over there as the head of the Coinbase Derivatives Exchange, Mr. Boris Ilyevsky. Boris, welcome back to the network, sir. It has been too long.
Hey, Mark. Really glad to be back. Always a fantastic time talking to you.
My producers tell me that we haven't chatted since August 7th of 2023. Can that possibly be right, sir? Crazy how long it's been.
That doesn't sound right, especially because we just saw each other ever so briefly a couple of weeks ago in Chicago.
Yes, at the big Stack conference. I was waiting for you to go on a big tirade into the world of crypto derivatives, and Henry never let you get there. He took you everywhere else but there. It was driving me crazy.
No, that's all right. That conference, it was a good opportunity for me to revisit my roots, my first love, which is, of course, the equity options industry.
My good buddy Henry, aka the Flow Master. I give him a hard time every week here on the network, so I gave him a hard time after that panel. So you gotta let Boris do his thing. He's doing crypto now. You gotta let him talk about it.
Of course.
Speaking of talking about it, let's get to it, sir. Like I said, it has been since 2023 since you joined us. We obviously have a ton of new listeners since then. So let's start there by going back a little bit. What the heck are we talking about? What is the Coinbase Derivatives Exchange, sir?
Yeah, so the Coinbase Derivatives Exchange is our U.S. futures exchange, regulated and registered with the CFTC, like every U.S. exchange should be. And we offer out for trading the major cryptocurrency futures, Bitcoin and Ethereum, but we also list U.S. regulated futures on many of the popular altcoins like Dogecoin and Polkadot, Stellar, and SHIB, and a couple of others. And we've had quite a ride since the last time I spoke to you, all the way back in 2023. Our volumes have grown substantially. We have very significant market share in the retail segment in the U.S. We trade hundreds of thousands of contracts per day. We traded over 1 million contracts just the other day and over $1 billion in notional value. And since then, we've actually dipped our toes back into the water of traditional commodity futures. We listed futures on gold, silver, and oil. And we're even thinking about things like equity index futures. But of course, our main focus remains margin U.S. regulated crypto futures. And we've grown quite a bit and looking forward to more growth this year. It's been a fantastic 2024, and we've had a really good start to 2025.
A lot to unpack there, sir. So let's dive right into it. You kind of mentioned the products. Let's just lay the table for our listeners right now. They might assume they hear Coinbase US derivatives and they say, okay, I need to be a Coinbase customer to trade these. Is that the case, sir? Or can I sling them at any futures broker that I have an account at?
So no, you do not need to be a Coinbase client at all. I will say you can't be a client of just any futures broker, but our distribution is growing. But if you are a client of firms like NinjaTrader or Webull or Ironbeam or StoneX, you can absolutely trade futures offered at Coinbase. And we are constantly trying to onboard and looking for additional partners. Webull just joined us as recently as a couple of months ago. NinjaTrader has been with us for quite some time, as has been Ironbeam and a couple of others. But we are an exchange for all futures brokers. If you are an FCM or have a relationship with an FCM as an introducing broker, you can come and connect and give your clients access to Coinbase Derivatives futures. And of course, you can be a client of Coinbase, which has an FCM as well. But we're not just an exchange for Coinbase clients. We're an exchange for the futures industry in the U.S.
Now, the crypto world obviously has fallen in love with this concept of perpetual futures. It drives some of our, shall we say, traditional derivatives guests crazy. They come on my network just complaining about these things. They can't wrap their heads around them. Are we talking about perps here? Are we talking about traditional futures with actual months and expiration dates, sir?
So we're always on the lookout for, new ways to offer U.S. derivatives. I think, perpetual futures are a very interesting concept and style of product and an excellent product design that's quite popular outside of the U.S. We're thinking about how we may look to doing something like that for the U.S. market through Coinbase Derivatives Exchange. But right now, what we offer for trading and what we list for trading are traditional monthly expiring futures for our crypto suite of products. Obviously, if we go back and start listing equity index futures, that might have more of a quarterly schedule, as equity index futures tend to trade in quarterly cycles. But our products today, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Polkadot, Stellar, futures contracts are all monthly. They expire on the last Friday of every month. They settle to cash, and they are traditional style futures contracts.
And speaking of that style, are we talking cash settled, or am I going to get the proverbial truckload of Bitcoin dumped on my lawn in the middle of the night, sir?
I mean, if you'd like to, but no. You don't get actual Bitcoin or Ethereum. I mean, who knows what happens in the future? No pun intended. But currently, all of our products are cash settled. I think it's the way our clients and sort of the industry prefers it. There's a very active and liquid spot market in the U.S. Coinbase is the bulk of that trading on the Coinbase spot exchange. And so all of our futures contracts are settled to an index that is made up of Coinbase prices that's calculated on a real-time basis and ultimately settles to a Friday final settlement at the end of every month.
You know, it's funny. Back in the early days of this program, it seemed like there was a big push in the crypto realm to move towards physically settled contracts. It was the hot thing. LedgerX had them backed, was starting up. They were getting into the physically settled game as well. It seemed like all the cool kids were heading into the realm of physically settled. They had dreams of selling covered calls and having your actual Bitcoin being taken away. And then lo and behold, a few years later, it seems like that has mostly gone the way of the dodo. Everybody I talk to now, Boris, is pretty much all about cash settled. Is that pretty much your takeaway as well? Physically settled for whatever reason, I never really caught fire, sir.
So yeah, not so far. And I don't personally believe that there's anything wrong with the concept of a physically settled crypto future. But whether it's because of existing rules and limitations with FCMs not feeling comfortable and not necessarily wanting to sort of touch, if you will, physical crypto, and because unlike the traditional commodities market, where the futures market is effectively the commodities market, not that there's not a spot gold or a spot oil market, but the market that's visible to everybody in crypto is a fully electronic 24/7 market. It's just easier and more efficient. And in particular, I would say that from a client's point of view, to the extent that a client ever even thinks about whether or not the futures contract they're trading is physically or financially settled, I think the issue there is that even in the world of physically settled commodity futures, it's not as if retail clients, who are, in many ways our primary target at the moment, they're not really thinking about, I'm selling oil futures because I have oil I want to deliver, right? In reality, those contracts don't actually go to physical settlement. They're traded by end clients as if they were financially settled because they're typically closed out or rolled at the end of the expiration cycle. But more importantly, for a crypto user who might actually have exposure to crypto or somebody who may not, the idea of selling crypto futures and then having to potentially sell or borrow a crypto that they don't have, that's just an additional complication that I just think hasn't been solved for just yet. And it's not sort of a problem that as I sit here, I think actually necessarily needs solving. I think we've now been running our crypto futures market for several years. CME's been out there even longer in the major products. We've had our alt futures products up and running since really not the beginning, but the first half of last year. And so far, we don't really have clients coming to us and say, what would really be better is if your product was physically settled. There could be some advantages. I think the industry and Coinbase in particular were quite interested in initiatives such as, using crypto as collateral. We were very excited that Acting Chairman Pham just announced a roundtable to discuss crypto assets as collaterals that could be used by FCMs. So we're thinking that the industry is definitely going in the right direction. But we also like cash settled futures. We don't necessarily think that there's a particular need for physically settled futures in crypto.
By the way, just as an aside, it is kind of fun to be going down this futures rabbit hole with you. I know you've been in the options trenches for so long. Are you starting to adjust to all this futures talks or all this futures fun? Is this starting to gel for you, sir? You like being a futures guy these days?
Oh, yeah. I've been a futures guy now for over 4 years. I've been at Coinbase just over 3 years and obviously started at Farex before that. So it's been a little bit over 4 years for me. And while I won't pretend to be as sort of deep into it or as knowledgeable or experienced as many of my current colleagues, frankly, and the people that I'm surrounded by, I am starting to feel like a true futures native, and it's been a lot of fun.
It's starting to sink in. Well, that's good. I have the same experience myself, actually, now that we've launched a futures program on the network. I've been resisting for years, and I could resist no longer, Boris. They lured me to the dark side. We launched it back in October of last year, and it's been fun for me to get dragged more into the world of futures as well. A lot going on over there, as you can obviously attest.
And you know what? It's getting bigger. The world is getting bigger. I mean, Webull, obviously, for one, that launched futures all the way, I think, back in March, April, and then went live with Coinbase a couple of months ago. And then, of course, Robinhood is getting into the futures business. So that world is getting a lot more crowded and populated, and that's all really for the good.
Let's get to some of those products that folks can trade over there at Coinbase Derivatives. You kind of gave us a little bit of a rundown at the top. Let's get into some. We'll start, obviously, in the core, obviously, the crypto offering, even though, as you mentioned, you are kind of expanding beyond that purview, which is kind of interesting as well. But the big dog, of course, the Bitcoin future, 1 Bitcoin per future. We've seen a variety of different attempts at this over the years. Your approach right now is the 1-to-1, so 1 Bitcoin for future, and then for folks who want a little bit smaller, a little bit more bite-sized approach, you've got the 1/100th of a Bitcoin. So with Bitcoin obviously lurking around 100,000 listeners, only 1,000 to get your foot in the door here on the nano Bitcoin products. Boris, I'd have to imagine, are those kind of leading the volume dance right now? Is that what all the kids are coming to Coinbase to trade these days, at least on the crypto front?
Yeah, for sure. Especially in terms of contract measured volume, that is by far our most popular product today. Already so far, we've traded about 300,000 of those contracts. They are by far the most popular. Bitcoin and of course other cryptos. They remain a relatively more volatile asset than your traditional broad-based equity index or a traditional commodity like gold or silver. So the initial margin is a little bit higher. The same way that an equity index tends to be in the range of 6 to 8% in terms of initial margin. Crypto and Bitcoin in particular is still sort of in the 20s, in the 23 to 25% margin rate. So the smaller the contract notional, the more accessible that contract is, because while there is leverage, it's not as much leverage as a more traditional equity index futures product. And also a lot of our audience is very retail, and that's really where we focused on the smaller contracts. The larger contracts, they have started to trade a little bit more, and as our distribution grows and our clearing and FCM partners grow, we anticipate a much bigger participation on the institutional side of the business and trading those larger contracts. And actually, because of that, it's really just in Bitcoin and Ethereum that we offer the 2 sizes today. The other altcoin futures that we trade, they all come in the more nano size and the smaller contract size and multiplier. That's really targeted at the retail community.
Yeah, I noticed the larger contract there, especially for Ether. You have a 10 Ether per future contract, listeners, as well as the nano size of 1/10. The goal for that, I know CME went that way early on, large multipliers, obviously to attract the ETF providers. It worked out, at least on the BITO front. Is that the goal as well, to get more institutional and maybe even ETF interest down the road with the larger size contracts there?
Yeah, for sure. And that's where we really hope to make a lot of progress this year. As still a relatively new futures exchange, we have an excellent roster of FCMs that support us, but we're still missing some FCMs, and we're still missing some brokers out there. And so as that roster continues to grow, we do think we'll start attracting and competing more for the institutional flow, for all of the ETF-related flow, and not just BITO, but even some of the hedging order flow that comes off from high-frequency trader participants to trade the spot Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. We're seeing a little bit of that volume today, but that's a huge growth area for us for 2025.
Like I said, you were an options guy for a long time. We've seen IBIT launch and kind of just take over the crypto options world. Obviously, it took a little while. ETFs were approved back in January of last year. We didn't get the options in our hot little hands until pretty much the end of the year in November. What are your thoughts on just the explosion of interest we've seen just in the last few months in IBIT options, sir?
Yeah, it's an amazing thing to watch. It's obviously not surprising. Options, I obviously still pay attention to my old industry. I trade options myself as well, not necessarily anything to do with crypto, given my particular role. But yeah, it's been an impressive uptake and how quickly it happened. And it's interesting how concentrated it is because obviously IBIT is the largest of the spot Bitcoin ETF, but there are a few larger ones. But it's interesting how liquidity tends to congregate in sort of the flagship product that's there day one. It's sort of like, SPY versus IVV, where those two humongous ETFs with hundreds of billions of dollars in assets under management, but one is sort of the flagship options play. Everybody likes to trade SPY options, and IVV, which has basically the same AUM level because it wasn't quite there on day one or wasn't recognized as the initial flagship product. Options volume there are a little bit. They're relatively inactive compared to SPY options. But it's fantastic to see the uptick and the uptake in IBIT options. I think all of that accrues to sort of all of the adjacent markets in the ecosystem. I think including futures, and I think as all of the big brokers and discount brokers and zero commission brokers basically start offering all of the products. I think it's just one of those things where the ecosystem produces more volume, more interest, and more trading opportunities for everybody involved.
Speaking of all the products, listeners, if you're not into the top two crypto, don't worry. Boris and the rest of the team over there have you covered, and all the big altcoin you could think of. They offer a 5 Litecoin contract over there. So if you want 5x Litecoin, there you go. 1-to-1 Bitcoin Cash contracts. A 5,000 Doge futures contract. That's an interesting one. They also have a Polkadot contract that I believe is 100 Polkadot per futures contract. A 1,000 Shiba contract, which I don't believe is 1,000 Shiba. Maybe Boris can set us straight with that. And then Avalanche, you get 10 Avalanche per future. Chainlink, you get a whopping 50 Chainlink per future. And Stellar, you get a full 5,000 Stellar. Boris, did I hit all the highlights? And what's up with the 1,000 Shiba and the 5,000 Doge, sir? Inquiring minds want to know.
Those are fun ones. Simply, the SHIB one in particular is a pretty interesting one, where because the underlying asset trades with so many decimals, in order to literally make it fit onto people's screens. And by the way, this is not a unique thing or any kind of limitation in the futures world. This is actually something that happens in the non-U.S. perpetual futures exchanges as well, where you actually multiply the underlying index by 10,000 before you apply the futures multiplier. And, one of the things we actually do look at, especially as assets change in prices, sometimes very quickly, is we, from time to time, re-examine, did we pick the right tick size? You just read out, and I appreciate you covering all of the products that we currently offer. We picked those multipliers. We try to look at sort of the historical prices, and we're trying to pick a size and a notional with the leverage we anticipate and the initial margin we expect to be assigned to the product to make it more accessible. And as a result, unfortunately, I wish you could just multiply everything by 10 or 100 or 100 and offer everything in the same size just to make everything that much easier. But unfortunately, you kind of have to cater these things, as sometimes happens in the equity index space and other spaces. And then you end up with some interesting and hilarious, in some cases, multipliers. But that's what gets you to the notional exposure that we think is the sweet spot for existing futures participants, but also brand new participants that are looking to trade, futures on SHIB or Stellar and others, and it gives them that bite-sized, notional amount that's not too big, but also not too small, and sort of makes sense with the various fees and the general experience and the exposure that we think both an experienced and a brand new futures trader will find interesting.
Obviously, crypto is bringing a lot of kids in the door, but see, as you mentioned, you're expanding that offering to go beyond just the world of crypto. You currently offer effectively the metals and crude oil. So our old pal WTI, 100 barrels of WTI, which doesn't sound like a small contract, listeners, until you go check out the full WTI contract, which is actually larger. So that is a smaller. And then you also have a nano crude oil contract as well, which has 10 barrels of WTI. Then if you wanted to get precious, listeners, you can do so over there at Coinbase with a gold future, which is just 1 troy ounce, and silver, which is 50 troy ounces. So, Boris, I'm curious, what was the thought process here? Why did you guys decide to expand beyond your core crypto offering, sir? And how'd you settle on these?
So, we have a pretty aggressive, roadmap in terms of the crypto futures assets that we want to list, but we're also being very judicious and cautious, making sure that we are in compliance with all the rules and regs. And as we started looking at the success that we've had with our retail cohort, we started getting requests from our client base and the FCMs to expand into more traditional asset classes. And in particular, gold was actually the one that was most requested, because a lot of people out there see it as an adjacent asset class to Bitcoin. It is sort of viewed as the traditional store of value, whereas Bitcoin is the more modern digital store of value. And a lot of people wanted to have those contracts side by side. And as it happens, outside of Bitcoin and ETH, our nano contracts, very often the next most popular contract that we have is our 1 ounce gold contract, which often trades upwards of 3,000 contracts a day, over $10 million a day notional. I mean, obviously those are very small contract volumes, when you compare them to the flagship markets. But for a new product for us, we're trading thousands of gold contracts, thousands of silver contracts, and often thousands of the oil contracts. So these are viewed as sort of adjacent commodities. And as we continue to focus on crypto, we will continue to see if there's opportunities to expand into the traditional space as well. And they've proven to be fairly popular with our client base. And as our distribution expands, we're sort of making a name for ourselves in making smaller, retail accessible futures contracts at very low fees. And, we're hopeful that we'll eventually be able to compete for all of that retail volume out there with the big players.
So should CME be nervous? Should they be sweating, looking in the rearview mirror a little bit, Boris?
In crypto, that for sure. I think we're, a little bit away from challenging any of the incumbents. The CME market is a very institutional market. We'll continue to do well. We have lots of respect for our friends at the CME, but we will continue to work with our retail brokers and just offer the products that our clients want.
Well, Boris, I have a lot more I want to talk to you with. Unfortunately, I have to keep rolling with the rest of the show. We'll have to bring you back on more frequently than once every 2 years, sir, 2+ years, so we can get the updates.
Happy to come back soon
on all the latest in the world of all things Coinbase derivatives. But before we go, Mr. Boris, we like to leave our audience wanting more. So we talked about a wide variety of things you folks already have cooking over there at Coinbase Derivatives, but let's leave them with a hint, a little bit of a tease. What can the folks look forward to coming down the pike over there at the Coinbase Derivatives Exchange in the coming months, sir?
Well, one of the things that, and I talked about this when I was at the FIA Expo back in November when I was in Chicago, and I was on a 24/7 panel. So that's something that I've talked about a little bit in the past, and so that's one sort of little teaser that I can tell you right now. We've gotten closer. We continue to work with the regulators and our partners and vendors and FCMs, and we're hoping to bring 24/7 to the crypto futures market soon.
All right, 24/7. That's one of those things. We get that from a lot of our audience. I always say, careful what you wish for. You may not want your phone going off at 2 a.m. saying, sell your Bitcoin. But this crypto native audience in particular, that's kind of what they expect now. They've come from that world. They just expect all assets to trade on that schedule. So you're right. It is a very...
that's right. Our futures already trade 23 hours a day, 5 days a week. They close on Friday night and open on Sunday night, just like traditional futures. But the crypto market continues to trade over the weekend, and then we think that makes sense for crypto futures to trade over the weekend as well.
All right, Mr. Boris. And if folks want to kick the tires and light the fires over there at the Coinbase Derivatives Exchange for themselves, maybe see what you have in the pipeline, where should they go? What should they do, sir?
I think they should go to the Coinbase Derivatives website, look at all the products that we offer, and we have a list of brokers that offer our products, and we hope they check us out.
Check them out over there, listeners. If you're intrigued by the notion of crypto derivatives and beyond, certainly a lot of interesting stuff going on over there. Boris, always fun talking with you. I'm sure we'll chat again soon, sir.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
All right, listeners, now we have to keep on rolling. It is time for a little bit of the old Bitcoin breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, listeners, always fun to catch up with Boris. He's always got some interesting stuff in the offing. It sounds like there is some intriguing stuff going on over there at Coinbase. Have you checked them out, listeners? Everyone thinks of Coinbase, they think of crypto, but even more in the hopper over there, which is always intriguing. Let's keep rolling. Let's see if anything is intriguing in the world of Bitcoin. And the answer is, I guess if you find dropping about 2,000 handles since our last show intriguing, then man, we got a banger for you, because that's what we got in store for you right now. Bitcoin, when we kicked off the show, 97,479. That's down from 99,635 on our last show, listeners. So again, below that highly watched 100K level, but we all know Bitcoin, give it 5 minutes, it could be many, many thousands of handles in a different direction. So if you don't like that level, just wait 5 minutes, listeners. Let's get on out to the land of the vol. Again, all of this data, all these analytics coming at you courtesy of our friends over there at Amber Data, amberdata.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. Their graphical interface completely free. You literally have no reason not to be kicking the tires over there. If you did that, you would see that the vol in Bitcoin starting to trend a little bit lower. Again, if you're drifting around the same level for a while, kind of makes some sense. Our weekly vol was kind of frothy on the last show, 58.25, coming into about a 44.90 as we kicked off the show. This week, monthly vol, 30-day vol, a more standardized vol metric, 56.5 on the show last time, 49.25 today. So again, vol coming in, and that is the case on the 6-month vol as well, 59.1 on the show last week, 56.5 this week. Let's get out to the skew, see if we see any interesting setups in the skew right now. On the weekly skew, it was exactly flat on the show last time, listeners. This week, slightly bearish, negative 1.1, which again, we're kind of vacillating around that 100K level. That makes some sense. A 30-day skew, it was a positive 3.15 on the show last week. This week, negative 0.3. So again, I would consider that to be flat. And then, of course, getting on out to the 6-month skew, the 180-day skew, listeners, we were positive 5.5 on the show last time. This week, positive 3.1. So the holders coming in a little bit as well. Let's get out to some of the other hot products you folks are slinging in the crypto derivatives world right now. Let's go out to IBIT. Just chatting about that with Boris. It is kind of the big story in the crypto derivatives world right now. 55.60 as we kicked off the show, puts it down about exactly a point from where it was on the last show. That ADV continues to climb, listeners. 452, up about 18,000 from this time on our last show. About exactly half of what VIX is putting up right now, which is nothing to sneeze at for a new product. VIX obviously established, a well-known entity in the world of derivatives and volatility. IBIT, very new, but already getting halfway there every day. Today, we only had about 150,000 contracts on the tape earlier in the session. Let's see if we can get a little bit more action on the tape right now. We're up to 179, so kind of a quiet start to the week. Doesn't seem like we're going to be hitting that ADV today, but you never know. There is some time left in the session. Your 30-day vol in IBIT right now at about a 49, down about exactly 8 points from where it was this time last week, and also lining up pretty much exactly at a 49.25 is what it is on Deribit. So always nice to see those lining up. That means there's some heavy arb between those platforms, which is to be expected. If those were completely out of sync, that would be very eyebrow raising, to say the least. In terms of size positions in IBIT right now, the big dog, 85,000 listeners of the March 68 calls. Yes, March 68s out there, listeners. Looks like a lot of them were opened exactly a week ago on the 3rd. Let's see what they were up to, listeners. Looks like they were trading from anywhere from $1.10 all the way up to $1.50. They started buying them around $1.10 and they kind of bid them up for prices all the way up to about $1.50. You like those, listeners? March 68 calls. Again, BITO 55.60. In March, you're getting yourself a little bit of time, but you need BITO to really kick into high gear. Or do you prefer that maybe as an overwrite? At the time when they were trading these, especially those high prints, IBIT was, as I said, BITO, IBIT. When IBIT was trading 57.20, that's when those 68 calls were trading $1.50. So obviously, roughly $11 out of the money. That's still a heck of a climb. So would you prefer to sell those? I think I probably would. It's not bad. It's a 57 vol, all things considered. And you still get to participate all the way up to 68. Interesting. March 68s. Again, given what we know about a lot of the space, pretty much holders are going to buy those. So you like buying those, listeners, for $1.50? Looks like the high for all time right now, IBIT, was mid-December of last year, right about a month after the election. The euphoria was still spreading, 60 3/4. So that's still a long way from 68, listeners. Just something to bear in mind out there. Let's keep rolling out to BITO, 22.75 when we kicked off the show, down about a point in the third. The ADV is 67,000, giving up another 8,000 since our last show. So the question continues to swirl around BITO. What's the future hold for BITO? Pun intended, since it is based off the futures. When we have IBIT taking up all the oxygen in the room. Today, kind of light as well, a little over 30,000 contracts on the tape out there in BITO. The vol out there coming in about 10 points from our last show. On our last show, we were at a 60 even, and today we're at about a 51. So that puts us down 9 points from where we were this time on the last show. And in terms of size positions, it's the June 30s, 30,000 of those bad boys are open right now in BITO. Listen, we talked before about how this seems to be just the strike, the strike du jour out there. There was size open on the Jan 30s. There are size open on the June 30s. We did some digging on these on the last show. It turns out they were opened a while ago, some of these June 30s. So folks have had an axe to grind, that 30 strike, for quite some time. Right now, it seems like a distant contender out there. Again, at 22 3/4 out there in BITO. But we all know this thing could move at a dime, and so can Bitcoin. Yeah, the all-time high for BITO was actually last March, 33.65. So can threaten it, can get there. Just a question of, can we do it by June expiry? You got some time. You got halfway through the year. Got some duration there. So it looks like some of these also could have been overwritten as well, which given the history, probably makes a little bit more sense. But intriguing stuff nonetheless. Speaking of intriguing stuff, can we find any in the altcoin universe? I guess it's time to find out.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the altcoin universe, the portion of the show where we go beyond the big dogs of BTC and ETH and see what's cooking in the bottom half of our top 10 and beyond. And let's see, on our last show, we were hanging out at about 20.8 billion to break into the top 10. That got us to our old pal Tron. And you know, Tron has a bit of a death grip on the number 10 spot right now because they are there again and almost literally unchanged from where we were this time last show. We were at 20.8 exactly. This week, 20.85. So up slightly in terms of market cap over there for Tron. Number 9, Cardano, which again is hanging out in the same order as last show. 24.75 billion worth of market cap. Number 8, the newest addition to Boris's futures over there, the Dogecoin future. Would you trade a what was it, 5,000x Dogecoin future, listeners? It's certainly an intriguing offering out there. I know volume-wise compared to the OI we're seeing in obviously some of the other products, it's still a small offering, but I don't know. 5,000 Doge per futures contract. Interesting number. Does that float your boat, listeners? Either way, Doge number 8, 37.6 billion. Man, Doge all over the place with Musk in the headlines every day. Kind of interesting stuff. Number 7, USD coin, 56.3 billion. Number 6, it's BNB, 87.3. Number 5, it's Solana. I didn't even get a chance. I ran out of time to ask him, where's the Solana, Boris? You got to have Solana future, even though Birdie did tell me that they are working on that. It's kind of the glaring omission in their product offering right now. This thing's whipsawing around all over the place. Probably be good to have a future on it, but 99 billion worth of market cap for number 5, Solana. Number 4, it's XRP, 140, almost 141 billion. Number 3, it's Tether, exactly 141.6 billion. So neck and neck between XRP and Tether. Number 2, it's ETH, 323 on the tape. And the big dog is Bitcoin, 1.93 trillion worth of market cap. If you were hoping, listeners, if you were hoping this was the period where ETH was really going to kick into the next leg up and really just outperform everything else and put aside all these concerns about ETH maybe being overblown and, maybe folks shifting their interest to Solana, I got bad news for you. This is not the week. We were at 3,074 on our show last week. ETH getting back lower, 2689, giving up another 385 handles that it quite frankly did not have to give. So yeah, this is not exactly doing a lot to quell the concerns that I know a lot of ETH heads had. We're just kissing 4,000 not too long ago, listeners. Was that the selling point? Are we going to look back and say, man, should have sold my ETH up there? At this level, we're almost getting back to the level where Dr. Vix famously washed his hands of ETH at 2,500. I want to say that was 3 years ago now. And here we are threatening that level again. Vol-wise, given the fact that we're selling off, folks starting to get a little spooked. We are seeing the vol maintain itself out here in ETH a little bit better than we're seeing out here in Bitcoin. Weekly vol, 68.5 on our last show, 67.5 right now, so pretty much the same level. 30-day vol, 66 on our last show, 66.75 this week. So again, pretty much maintaining itself. A longer-term vol, 68.5, actually coming in a little bit there, down to a 67.1. The skew on the weekly skew, no surprise, they've turned to the dark side, almost a -3, -2.85. That is down from the -1.5 that we had on our show last week. 30-day skew, almost a +3 on the show last week. That's all gone. We're flat to slightly negative, -0.5 right now on the 30-day skew. Longer-term skew, 6-month, +6.25 last show, +4.1. So even the hodler's getting perhaps a little less holdly, to coin a phrase, out here. Let's go on out to the rest of the altcoin universe. Then we'll get out of here for this week, listeners. Solana, 227.5 on our show last week, 203.25 right now, listeners. So giving up about 24.25 points from our last show. XRP, 292 on our last show, 245 this week, giving up nearly half a buck. You could argue that one doesn't have that to give up as well. But XRP giveth and it taketh away, and right now taking some away. Dogecoin, whopping 32.2 cents on our last show, folks. We're all in a tizzy about Musk using it as a payment system, whatever the case may be. This week, back down to earth, 25.5 cents, down nearly 7 cents, 6.6 cents. That's a big down move for Doge. Litecoin, bucking the trend, 111 on the show last week, 118.94, up nearly 8 handles, about 7.89 from where it was this time a week ago. Cardano, 90.6 cents last week, 70.6 cents this week, giving up about exactly 20 cents. So rough week for Cardano. Polkadot, 577 on the show last week, 4.89 this week, down 88 cents. And everybody's favorite, now the underlying for the new 1K Shiba contract over there at Coinbase Derivatives Exchange. Shiba Inu, 1,000,000 zeros, 1837 last show, this time 1592. So unfortunately, no Shiba Lambos for any of us. All right, listeners, had a fun show out there today. Always fun chatting with my old buddy / nemesis, Mr. Boris. Check out what they have cooking over there in the land of the Coinbase Derivatives Exchange. You know how to find Coinbase, I'm assuming. The Derivatives Exchange right there as well. A lot of interesting products, and it sounds like they do have their sights set on more, which is always interesting. We'll get more updates and more insight from Boris on a future show. Don't you worry. In the meantime, while you're checking things out online, make sure you're checking out our friends over there at Amber Data, amberdata.io. the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. Again, that graphical user interface completely free for you now, so you can go check out all this data we're talking about. And again, we literally just scratched the surface on this show. There's so much more we could get into every week in terms of just the raw data. So you owe it to yourselves to check it out, especially if you've been listening to this show for a while. See what the Amber Data folks are all about. Amberdata.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. It's going to do it for us on the network today. Listeners, back again with our usual array of content, including if you're intrigued by crypto derivatives, and we had a long talk about crypto futures and other futures today on the show. Make sure you're tuning in to the Futures Rundown every Wednesday. We get into all that fun. I'll be joined by our good buddy Kevin Green to go deep. Will crypto futures make it onto the show this week? I guess we got to tune in to find out. Also, Options Bootcamp, very near and dear, I know, to a lot of the listeners of this show, our premier educational program. So if you're confused by a lot of these terms we're throwing around, Options Bootcamp is there for you. Back again on Thursday this week in Futures Options, seeing what's lighting it up on the Futures Options side. Again, we do delve into crypto there. I know Bitcoin made it into our movers and shakers on that show last week. So if you like crypto content, there is more for you out there in the network, including on the Pro, theoptionsinsider.com/pro. I've had some great Pro Q&As out there. Also, interesting activity that is crypto related on Options Oddities. Check it out. I think you're going to like what you find. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro. And we're back again, not next week, because of course, I do believe we are off for the President's Day holiday, listeners. You know, the poor crypto rundown. It gets impacted the most. Yes, we are off for the President's Day holiday next week, listeners. So no crypto rundown next week. We'll be back again in 2 weeks. Don't blame me, blame the presidents. Back again in 2 weeks. Another episode of the Crypto Rundown. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.